start my journey as a climate activist, or even a sailor. I discovered sailing at the age of 25, and a few short years later, I had an opportunity to race a yacht around the world. It was while I was doing that circumnavigation that I really started to notice the problem. We had set sail from Cape Town in South Africa, and we were on our way across the Southern Ocean to Port Taranaki in New Zealand. The Southern Ocean's my favourite ocean. It is so vast and wild, and you get waves the size of houses down there. Mid-journey, and I was helming the boat in the freezing, frigid temperatures of the deep south, across these huge waves. And as I looked out across the ocean, I just noticed something that didn't look right. And as I focused in on it, I realized that I was looking at a styrofoam box in the middle of the Southern Ocean, and my heart just started breaking. We were 20 days from land, and I was seeing human trash out here. We then sailed from New Zealand to Australia, up to China and across the North Pacific Ocean. And there were whole sections of this journey where the pollution in the water was so thick that we had to have a person on the bow of the boat with a boat hook pushing the rubbish physically out of the way of the boat so that we could sail through. There were complete sections that were just dead zones, the absence of life, no fish, no birds, nothing was existing. And then the storms were out of season. They were always hard to predict. And when we did get a storm, they were always more aggressive than forecasted. This was no longer something that I was reading about in the paper or watching on the news. I was looking at the dramatic effects of climate change and human impact in real time. And it became so clear just how much damage we were doing to our amazing world. And with that, I became incredibly overwhelmed. I knew something had to be done, that we needed change, but I was at a complete loss of what to do about it. And I was so impacted and so overwhelmed that I did nothing. I did nothing. And I justified doing nothing to myself by telling myself that I'm just one person. My bit doesn't matter. It's not a significant enough of an impact. I don't matter. I didn't even recycle because that was effort and it felt like wasted effort. We recently reached a population of over 8 billion people on this planet. And I started thinking to myself that it's quite likely most of us are feeling overwhelmed and like our bit doesn't matter. But what if we could change that mindset and inspire those 8 billion people to take on a climate action now? Together, we would be able to create an incredible future. From this, I launched my Climate Action Now campaign, and I set about collecting Post-it note messages. Throughout my life, I've seen people write messages or leave notes to self all on these tiny squares of colourful pieces of paper and stuck on all manner of things throughout their homes. Post-it notes were a way to communicate, to leave somebody a message or a reminder for yourself. So I decided that I would leave a message or messages for the world. I then purchased my baby, a 50-foot offshore ocean racing yacht that I formally renamed Climate Action Now so that I could further drag attention to my message. I then went out to community members globally and I asked people to send me their climate action message. It was important that it was something that they were already doing towards a better future. And all manner of messages started flooding in, from Sally has short showers to Joe turns the lights off when he leaves the room to Bob, he picks up rubbish every time he walks his dog at the beach. I collected all of these messages up and we turned them into this digital design and then wrapped the entire hull of my 50-foot offshore racing yacht in thousands and thousands of the community's messages and the community's actions. My goal was also to sail Climate Action Now solo around Antarctica, and while sailing the 16,000 nautical miles across the Southern Ocean, I could use that opportunity to inspire those billions of people who think that their bit doesn't matter and show them that every impact matters. Everyone has the power to create change. It just starts with one action. My first attempt in 2017 didn't quite go to plan. And after sailing at sea solo for 72 days, I suffered a dramatic and life-threatening dismasting in the Southern Ocean. And I was forced to make landfall in Cape Town in South Africa, causing me to finish the record with one stop. Now, I knew I was perfectly capable of sailing non-stop around Antarctica. And more than that, if I could break that world record, then I would be able to generate so much more media attention and reach so many more people with this cause and this message of climate action now. Only this time, I was able to extend the Climate Action Now campaign even further and actually do real scientific research from the Southern Ocean while sailing around Antarctica. We converted the sail locker in the bow of the boat into a micro lab at sea. And this video shows you what research was taking place. Hi everybody, how are you going? So it's day 26 here, and I thought it's a pretty mild weather day, so I thought I'd take you through the science that's taking place on board the boat at the moment. So this is the Subsea Research Unit. So this does a lot of ocean health readings. It's been running 24/7, taking unlimited data, and basically it measures things like acidity, salinity, chlorophyll, PCO2. So it gives us an indication of how the health of the ocean is in this area of the planet. And there's not a lot of data that does that, so it's a really great little system. Then over here we have the microplastic sampler. So the water's coming in through a skin fitting in the bottom of the boat, comes through the Subsea Research Unit, and then pairs off and goes through this unit here. In this little device here I have the filters, and I have in there a 500 micron filter at the moment, and I'm about to change that out for a 100 micron filter that I'll run for 2 hours, and then I'll replace it with a new 500 micron filter which we run for the other 22 hours. And this is the 500 micron sample size. The 100 micron is a much finer sample. 83 of the microplastic samples have been analysed by the Australian Institute of Marine Science and span the entire circumnavigation around Antarctica. Now, microplastics is a plastic particle that is smaller than 5 millimeters in size. And because it's so small, it becomes a widespread and persistent issue across our ecosystems. Alarmingly, we found plastic in every single sample across the Southern Ocean, with the lowest concentration found halfway across the Indian Ocean, with a sample pool of just over 6,000 particles of microplastics per an Olympic-sized swimming pool volume of water. I then sailed through an area of our ocean called Point Nemo. It's nicknamed the loneliest place on Earth because you're the furthest point from land that you can get anywhere on the planet. And I would end up closer to the astronauts in outer space than any human on any piece of land anywhere in the planet. And in the loneliest place on the planet, I was finding plastic. 68,000 particles of microplastics per an Olympic-sized swimming pool in this remote section of our planet. And the highest volume of microplastics was found just below Australia, with an alarming volume equivalent to over 357,000 particles of microplastics in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And the average across all samples collected was over 58,000 particles of microplastics in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, all found in the Southern Ocean, so far from land and human impacts. This was the most comprehensive data set to ever be completed for the Antarctic region in both the number of samples collected and the spatial distribution of those samples. And when we further broke down the information, we could see that we sampled 64% microfibers versus 35% fragments. Microfibers are generated from the textile industry and the synthetic clothing that you wear. If you have polyester nylon clothing and you do an average 2.5 kilo load of laundry, you can release over 300 particles of microplastics that will not be captured in that machine. It'll filter into your waste treatment systems, and for us in Australia, our waste treatment plants all feed to the ocean and none of them filter for microplastics. And of the fragments found, all of the fragments are what we call a secondary fragment, except for one particle. A secondary fragment is a larger plastic item, such as a drink bottle or a plastic container, that's broken down into smaller and smaller particles until it reaches a microplastic size. And the primary fragment that I found was a microbead, similar to what you would find in a skincare product, like an exfoliating body wash. And something that I didn't know until I began my journey into microplastics was how much tires contributed to the microplastics in our oceans. As we drive our cars these days, our tires are a combination of rubber and plastic. So as we drive on the road, we're eroding microfibers, and then you get a large rainfall, washes it all into our storm drains, and all our storm drains feed to the sea. This is a lot of alarming information to absorb, but I want you to know that you can minimize your impact. You can install a filter on the discharge line of your washing machine, or choose to buy natural material clothing such as bamboo, cotton, or hemp fibers. You can pick up plastic pollution as you see it on our streets and waterways and be mindful of your disposal. You can drive less. You're not just saving the CO2, but you've got the bonus of minimizing the amount of microplastics you're contributing to our oceans. You can invest in quality products that will last a lifetime and repair over replace items. And most importantly, spend wisely, because you are voting with your dollar. And 9 times out of 10, there is an eco-friendly option available to us. And if we purchase that option, we're voting for more of that in our future. If I maintained the I can't attitude, that my bit doesn't matter, I never would have launched the Climate Action Now campaign and sailed it into 5 world records. I never would have collected those microplastic samples at sea or became a United Nations Decade of Ocean Science endorsed project through the Ocean Ops Odyssey program. And I wouldn't have had the opportunity to work with research partners like the Bureau of Meteorology, the Seabed 2030 program, or the Australian Institute of Marine Science. None of that action would have been possible without that mindset shift. So what mindset shift will you take to embrace climate action now? And what action are you going to take to create an impact?